Vítám vás u dnešního dílu podcastu Insider. Moje jméno je Michal a je tady se mnou můj kolega Tomáš Jirsa.
Dobrý den.
Ještě než začneme, tak pár obvyklých vzkazů od Tomáše.
Rádi bychom poděkovali našim partnerům, kterými jsou advokátní kancelář ROWAN LEGAL, provozovatel zdravotnických zařízení PENTA HOSPITALS a American Academy in Prague, mezinárodní základní a střední škola s moderním kampusem v Nuslích, inspirovaná nejlepšími vzdělávacími systémy na světě. Více se dozvíte na www.americanacademy.com.
Zároveň chceme poděkovat všem, kdo nás pravidelně poslouchají a podporují. Pokud chcete slyšet celý díl, předplaťte si ho pokud možno na Patreonu, patreon.com/insiderpodcast. Odkaz najdete v popisku pod videem. A teď už jdeme na to. Koho jsme si dnes pozvali, Tomáši?
Tak, vítáme vás u dalšího dílu podcastu Insider. Trošku netradičně, jsme úplně v jiné lokalitě, vysvětlíme to za chvíli. Náš host má tady v Praze hodně nabitý program, takže si udělal čas tady přímo v restauraci Silk a děkujeme nadaci PPF za azyl v těchto krásných prostorech. Další věc, která je hodně netradiční, je, že jsem místo svého kolegy Michala, který to se mnou moderuje, a toho času je v Londýně, tak jsem požádal další legendu světové cyklistiky a to je kamarád a spolucyklista Zdeněk Štybar, jestli by si vyzkoušel dneska být takový spolumoderátor a taky spoluhost s Bradley Wigginsem. Takže vítej i ty, Zdeňku.
Děkuju.
A proč jsme vlastně dneska tady? Jaká akce se koná?
Je to vlastně u příležitosti L'Etape Tour de France, který vlastně se jezdí každý rok. Jezdí se v Praze, jezdí se v Prachaticích, ale asi nejdůležitější nebo to nejzábavnější na tom je, a to je asi proč jsme tady, tak vždycky přivezou do Prahy, do České republiky minulýho vítěze Tour de France. A myslím si, že to je skvělý pro lidi a i jako pro celou takovou jako reklamní kampaň, cyklistickou reklamní kampaň jako pro nás, pro všechny, protože je úžasné tady sedět vedle Bradleyho.
So now to English.
Yeah.
Welcome, Bradley.
Thank you.
To one of the biggest Czech podcasts. I had the honor of inviting a bit of a co-host and maybe a co-guest as well, Zdeněk. My first question that I thought of is, we'll be talking a lot about Tour de France and the stage that will be raced here, and you're the ambassador of. And my question is Roubaix 2015, because that's where you kind of met head to head. So, can you give us your thoughts and Zdeněk, your thoughts on the race?
Yeah, it was 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
Did you do 14 as well, 2014?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that was my best one, actually. I was 9th that day. That was the one I always felt like I should have took more chances. Roubaix is a funny race, you know.
Yeah.
We had so many riders in the front, and you guys had so many riders in front with Tom, yourself, Nicky.
Yeah.
And Tom went on Wallers, I think, that year as well, and he went across to a group with Geraint Thomas, and I was right on his wheel when he went, and I always felt like if I'd have gone across with him, I'd have rode, because then we caught them on our Carrefour de l'Arbre is when it all came back together, and then Nicky attacked in the final, and so yeah, I mean, but I came into the velodrome with Tom, Cancellara, Sagan, Geraint Thomas, and that was one of my greatest memories, coming into the velodrome for the win. Well, Nicky was off the front, we came in for second place, but that was better than all my other races I ever did, Tour de France and everything.
Really?
Just because the history of Roubaix, it's such a special race. You know, the last 5 kilometers, you realise what you're doing, you know, when you're going downhill into Roubaix and you come into the velodrome past the buses, and then, you know, the crowd, it's just incredible. And for me, as a Tour de France winner, to be able to come into the front of Paris-Roubaix with the people from my generation that I looked up to, you know, like Cancellara, Tom, Sagan, it was incredible. So the year after, I made a big.
Made it your goal to.
Yeah. I knew it was going to be my last race with Sky, and I thought I'd love. Maybe I was too vocal about it, because the press got behind it, and everyone's like, "This is going to be Wiggins' last race, and he wants to win it." And And so I felt like all eyes were on me,
Yeah.
And I think I finished 19th on my the last one.
I think 18th.
18th, yeah. And it was just, from you get to Arenberg and you get through Arenberg and everything's good, and then from Arenberg till Carrefour it goes like that.
Yeah.
You just and all you do the recon, you go, okay, left, right here. When you're in the race, you just, before you know it, you're like, I'm here now, at Carrefour, and everyone's attacking, and it's coming back and attacking, and it just goes so fast. So then, that was it really. By the final, we were still a big group, I think, that year in 15. Oh, there was...
we were gone, 15, but I will come back to 14 because I was in the group then with you. Because we were sprinting there, but it was like... we were with Nicky, Tom, myself in the group, and it was my second Roubaix. And the DS, he was saying like, yeah, Štiby or Nicky, just go for it. But before I even I realized that Nicky was gone and he won Roubaix. So it was like, I think that's probably my biggest regret from Roubaix. And then of course the 15. I just remember that I chased you down because of course you were so vocal about that you want to win.
I attacked on Templeuve, and the moment just arose that I was moving up, and then I was getting the rush from moving up before the sector of Templeuve, and I got behind the motorbikes because they will go really. So I just carried on, and I went into the motorbikes, and then I attacked, and I never planned to take that opportunity there, but I thought and the sector's not that long; it's only about 500 meters. And I came off it, and then I think you came across to me with the Belgium champion at the time from Lotto.
No, I think I came myself.
Oh, you came, yeah.
And then probably somebody chased us down.
Stein Vandenberg, I think, was with us as well.
That's possible.
There were four in the end.
Yeah.
We came onto the big road, and it was a headwind.
Yes.
And and then behind, the panic stations happened because there was two of us in the front, a good group. But when we came back together, they attacked again, and then a smaller group went away with guys you didn't expect, like John Dakenlob and that, and wasn't to be.
Because we had a podcast in the winter with Tadej Czech, who's the main organizer of this basically event. And what was fascinating for me is he remembered every detail of every penalty shot, and so my question to you is, because you were very specific about the details of the race, how do you both remember those details going, 10, 15 years back?
I remember.
That's still like fresh.
Yeah, for
memory.
me, that race in particular is really. I have like a degree in that race. When I was a kid, I was watching my first Paris-Roubaix I watched was 1993. I was 13 years old, and I was obsessed with it. And I never forget Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle and Franco Ballerini were there. Sean Yates was the British champion. Sean Yates was 8th that day. And it's funny, in recent years, I've collected all of Sean Yates' jerseys from those Paris-Roubaix. So I have his 91 Roubaix with the numbers still, 92 with the 93 with a British champ, 94 when Andre Schmil won, and it was muddy. Sean Yates was 4th that day. So somehow I got all his last 5 Paris-Roubaix jerseys. And I had, because he was my hero when I was a kid, this British guy, he was him and Chris Boardman were the 2 British guys. And when you watch a countryman when you're a kid, it inspires you that I can do this as well. And so that was, Sean Yates was that for me. But 93 Paris-Roubaix, Franco Ballerini, Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle in front together. Duclos-Lassalle wouldn't work with Ballerini, so Ballerini rode the whole way in. They sprint on the velodrome. Ballerini thinks he's won. And then the French realised that Duclos-Lassalle has won his second Paris-Roubaix. It was incredible. And then 94 was even bigger for me. I was 14. I stayed off school to watch it because I didn't watch it on the Sunday. It came on the Monday because I was racing on the Sunday. So I watched the replay on Eurosport on the Monday, and Schmil attacks 60 kilometres to go. Museo gets within 5 seconds of him on the Bianchi bike, the suspension bike. And
so you don't remember only your races, you remember all the races before that.
And then so all through the 90s, Paris-Roubaix was, like 95. Then the year after, Ballerini had crashed in Wevelgem with Museo, and he came back. He had a plaster on his knee on the Sunday, and he attacked on Templeuve, the same sector I attacked on 20 years later in 2015, and wins, and Mapai were ever present. They were that was your team, that was Quickstep. Yeah. you know, and they've always been the best team in Paris-Roubaix. And the year after, then they did the 1, 2, 3, Taffy, Boltalami, Museo in 96, 97. You know, Frédéric Guédon won from Francis de Joux, but they came into the velodrome together, and then 98 Ballerini wins again, 99 Taffy wins, 2000 Museo wins, 2001 Service Canavan wins, you know, 2002 Museo win. It's always the same team. That team has been the best team in the last 25, 30 years in Paris-Roubaix. Yeah. But this year, funnily enough, they weren't present at all in any of the classics. It's the first year.
Yeah, the last years they are struggling. I think because they made the switch with Remco into the GC, so I think they are just struggling. They set the focus just for the GC and not for the one-day races, which is, I think, they took away the DNA of the team. Yeah. And that's a pity, but because, you know, like if Remco would leave, then they have to change again all the strategy of the team. Yeah.
So let's move it up a little bit. Is what I find fascinating about L'Etape is it brings this big symbol of Tour de France, a global lighthouse of road cycling, into all the other countries around. So you described how motivated you were watching your fellow countrymen compete in the races. So what is this significance of Etape around the world for you as a Tour de France winner?
Well, I think it's the closest that the general public and the cycling fan will be able to come and have an experience of what a stage of the Tour de France is like. It doesn't matter where it is, you know, with the whole branding of the Tour de France, the atmosphere around it as well, because it's not just when you're riding, it's the days building up to it. You know, it's the presence of ASO, it's the presence of the Tour de France, and you know, the feel about it. It's a special feeling when you go to the Tour de France. You know, when you're at the start, you're at the Grand Depart, and you're there for 3 days before it, and the public and the whole atmosphere around the race, even before you've pedaled the first kilometre. And I think this is what, you know, even now, we're in April now, and the ride's not till June. We saw a sense of what that atmosphere was like yesterday, that the Tour de France is going to come to town for one day. And it's an incredible experience for people to be part of that. And as ex-riders of the Tour de France, ex-winner of the Tour de France, you know, to be able to come and share that with those people, it's an amazing experience for people. And you know, it's in some cases for people in Prague, you know, it's not a once in a lifetime opportunity, but it's something that doesn't come around every year. So it's great.
How do you view it?
Yeah, you know, it's what I really like on it's you know, that people goes there with a goal for different purposes, you know, that they really they have the goal to train for L'Etape, that they are motivated and you know, they want to improve again the time. But what I like personally on that, you know, there is like a good energy. You are always in between sporters, motivated people. You can just chat with them during the ride. Actually, that's what I do, and I love it because they always share some stories with me. Like, you know, sometimes I hear just, I start cycling because of you. Or, you know, I was watching, I don't know, the World Championship in Tabor 2010, and that was why I start cycling. And now we are riding together. And, you know, with the kids, sometimes it's the same, not particularly here during this race, but just to be there, share the same passion with thousands and thousands of people. And actually, in the atmosphere of Tour de France, it's really nice. It's also really nice, nice ride. Nice roads. You know, just everything close, everything well organized. Good atmosphere. People cheering next to the road in every village. It actually really feels like Tour de France stage.
Kind of looking at it from the bigger picture. Because I started following road cycling with, of course, the era of Lance Armstrong. Then was basically your era and Team Sky, and it was like a second wave for me. What do you think is now the situation with road cycling globally? Is it still on the rise? Because it's in the Czech Republic, it definitely seems so. There's like a wave, a lot of people getting into it. But globally, is it so? Because you travel a lot.
Yeah, I think so. And I think part of the reason for that is we have so many riders globally that are competing at the highest level. You know, I never imagined one day that we'd have well, in the last few years, we'd have 2 or 3 Slovenians that are the top of Grand Tour riding.
Do you have any rationale behind
But it's
that?
crazy. Like 10 years ago, we had myself, Froome, Geraint Thomas, so from Britain.
Yeah.
You know, and now it's the Slovenians. You know, and it's incredible that how, and Slovenia probably never imagined that you'd have maybe someone now who is on the way to being the greatest that ever lived.
Yeah.
In Tadej, you know, he's not there yet. He's not surpassed Eddie Merckx's record, but he's on the way. And the way he's racing, it's like Eddie Merckx used to race. Every race he gets up for. Yeah. You know, in the last 3 weeks, he's won Sanremo. He's been Sanremo on the podium, won Flanders, second in Roubaix, and second in Amstel. And he's got Liège and Flèche today and Liège this weekend. Yeah. And then in July, he's going to try and win the Tour de France. And we've never seen this since Eddie Merckx. Yeah. And so, you know, it's a special moment at the moment but Tadej, the way he races also, it's not that he's winning this race. He's like a 16-year-old child, you know, when he races. He's like a junior. When we go to junior races or schoolboy races, that's how we used to race. And Tadej's doing it at the highest level. And so it's, you know, I think he is inspiring lots and lots of people, the way he rides and the way he is off the bike. He's such a gentleman. He's such a, you know, he smiles whether he wins or loses. He doesn't have, like, you know, we talk about Lance Armstrong. What a difference to the mentality of Lance Armstrong. And I know it was a different era, but Lance was a ruthless killer, you know, and we know that how he was off the bike and all the stories we hear around it. But Tadej is just, you know, he smiles whenever he wins or loses, and he's very honest with his interviews and things. And it's an incredible moment for us to witness. I think it's, and as I say, Tadej, you know, I'm sure hundreds of thousands of people go out on a Sunday on their bikes with their friends and all think that they should pretend to be Tadej, like we all do. You know, when I was a child, I used to go out and I used to pretend I was Miguel Indurain climbing in the Tour de France, and it's really, really great.
Yeah. But you know, I think that they support each other. You know, like it's you all, like as you said, like you, Chris and G, that you are like. Yeah, you want to beat the other one, right? Probably. Yeah. So I think that that's what happened in Slovenia. Yeah. I think it's the same effect. Yeah. Just, you know, you want to beat the other one, and it's always like by couple. It's like something like with Wout and Mathieu. I think that they push each other so hard every single race since juniors. That's why they are where they are. Yeah.
And because you were part of the huge success story of the British cycling. Now it's probably Slovenian cycling because the country is really small with like a few people. What are the ingredients for a successful campaign? You know, for a nation to really come up with a lot of good talent and nurture young riders.
Well, I think it's very different from Slovenia and Great Britain are two completely different things because although we're only small countries, we had our biggest influence was we had money that came into the sport. And obviously the big success on the track with the British program and the Olympic medals, and then from that, you know, they got sponsorship for a road team with Sky, and then from that, you know, we had a lot of young track riders that were winning world championships, Olympic medals, that came into Team Sky and had the best training, the best equipment, etc., etc. And then success breeds success. You know, Geraint watched me win the Tour, and he was doing the track at that time, and he said, in 3 years, if Brad can do it, I can do it. And so on, you know, and it went from there really. And then we had the likes of, you know, at that time in the British system, we had the Yates twins, you know, they never came to Sky, or they did after, or one of them did afterwards. But they went on to another team with Green Edge, and then they won the Vuelta and, you know, all these other races. So Britain had an influx of riders watching other British riders win. And Slovenia did it very differently. They just had a guy who was ski jumping who came to cycling. And Tadej, I remember what I was doing Eurosport I was doing Eurosport coverage in 2019. I was at the Vuelta, and Tadej was 19 and he won 3 stages in this Vuelta. And it was like, wow, this kid, the 3rd stage he won that year, he did 70k solo, which is what he does now. You know, it's the same. And so he's raced in the same way all these years. And it's incredible. I mean, that was only 6 years ago. And you think what he's achieved in those 6 years. But I remember when we were watching him, we were like, who's this kid at 19? Now, how many 19-year-olds win races? It's like the normal, you know. And the guy who won Tirreno this year was 19, I think. Yeah. But we said, who is this kid? And someone said, he was Slovenian cyclocross champion, junior cyclocross champion, Tadej.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to see where he's come from. But You know, it's a similar, very similar for Czech. When I was a kid, we used to have a race called the Milk Race. It was the biggest amateur race. It was like the Peace Race, but in the UK. And the Czech team always used to come. Okay. So when I was a kid, I saw Jan Zvorada riding there and everything, you know, and I was like, wow, and this guy went on to Lampre. And then Zvorada was sprinting in the Tour against Wilfried Nelissen and Cipollini and all these guys. And then you had Jan Hruska, and at the time you had the world cyclocross champion, Simonek, was it?
Yeah.
And so So Czech have always had great riders, you know, great individual riders, but maybe never had a Grand Tour rider. But you've got a great history of cyclocross races, haven't you?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
The world champion.
Yeah, I know, of course. Yeah.
But it was also like why I started cycling.
Yeah.
Because of Simonek. I think he was, you know, like my father, he was following him, and you know, and it was like great personality, you know, like winning races, going to Belgium, you know, winning there. And I remember, like, on Sundays, I was just watching cyclocross races, and that's why I want to do it.
Well, Peter said that he grew up in the same village as Simonek.
Yeah,
and he used to watch him go training every morning, you know, in the World Champions jersey, and he's a really important figure, I think, within Czech cycling, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he was. Yeah,
very influential, and that's what Tadej and these guys are now for the young Slovenians. And so, like I said, success breeds success. You know.
Are you a bit envious of the way he rides?
Děkujeme, že jste doposlouchali až sem. Pokud chcete slyšet víc, celý díl najdete na adrese patreon.com/Insider Podcast. Odkaz najdete v popisku hned pod videem.
A co jsme v dnešním Insideru řešili dále? Podívejte se.
And Slovenia probably never imagined that you'd have maybe someone now who is on the way to being the greatest that ever lived.
Tadej Pogačar, total class, total dominance.
Are you a bit envious of the way he rides?
Tadej is just, you know, he smiles whenever he wins or loses. It's an incredible moment for us to witness.
You said like Lance Armstrong was the killer. Yeah. And this guy seems like a babyface killer.
I know,
you know?
Bradley Wiggins became the first ever British cyclist to win the Tour de France.
Cycling had been my life since I was 12, 13, and it's all I ever did. So when you stop at 36, it's and it's gone. So your identity is always linked with you, the cyclist.
Yeah.
You know, and it's hard. You have to find an identity as you, the person. You're not the cyclist anymore. You still love cycling, you still do it, but you're not the professional cyclist who shaves his legs every day. And, you know, within 3 years of retiring, I was a drug addict. You know, I smoked, I drank, I took drugs, and I was very, very on the bottom. You know, very low. I could have been found dead, you know. You know, funny enough, we talk about Lance. Lance has been my biggest helper. You know, he put me in a rehab.
Really?
He put me in a rehab. People don't see that side of Lance, you know. And he's been, you know, he saved my life in many ways, you know. Anger or trauma or, you know, kind of adversity from childhood, which, you know, you channel it into cycling. But when cycling's gone and you have a normal life to deal with, then it becomes a problem.
Don't ever let somebody tell you you can't do something. Not even me.